Hello students, I have come with the new question of GS paper 1 Indian Society 2023. It is question number 19. You can see question number 19, GS paper 1 Indian Society, right? Civil Services Examination 2023. It's a 15-mark question and the answer is to be written in 250 words. It's approximately 250 to 300 words, or you can say 200 to 300 words. So don't think that 250 exact is required. Right? What was the question? Why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? If you have to further, if you want to change the wordings, you can say caste is showing change as well as continuity. Caste is showing change as well as continuity. If you say continuity, here the term may come caste is showing resilience, right, against the modern factors. That is, caste is changing its form, right? So this question, if we have to answer it, first we have to know what are the feature of the social stratification system in the history of India, right? So we come to the next slide, in which we talk about the features of the traditional caste system. Now, if you talk about caste system, then we have to, if we discuss the features of the caste system, then we have to divide the history of India into different periods. First is Vedic period, right? First is Vedic period, right? That comes from 1500 BC to 600 BCE, right? Now, if you talk about the social stratification system, how society is structured in India in the Vedic period, then the prominent word that is to be used for it is Varn system. You can say Varn system is antecedent of the caste system. So during Vedic period, the society was divided into Varn, right? Now we don't want to go into detailed history, but at the earliest there were only two Varnas, Aryan and Das. Aryan means Aryan invaders who came from Central Asia, and Das the native population, and they were two racial groups. There was strict separation between them. You can say an iron curtain existed between them. Later on, what you find, the Varn became occupational category or functional category based on the work that you do, right? Varn status was identified. Initially, three Varns were there: Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vis, V-I-S. Later on, we have Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. Outside this, there were certain other groups, but they did not come under the Varn category. So they were occupational category. They were open system of social stratification, like this Varn status was not based on birth, rather it was based on achievement, right? So principle of achievement was the basis, not ascription. A few groups were outside of this scheme. So this was from 1500 BC to 600 BC, right? You can generally we say four varnas were there: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. These four varna represented four occupational category. There was no restriction on the social mobility of one varna into other. So a person who is born in Vaishya could become Brahmin. A person who is born in Shudra community, Shudra varna, he can move to the Brahmin or Kshatriya class, right? So mobility was there depending on your ability and your achievement. But in post-Vedic period, which is also known as Sutra period, what you find that Varna system became rigid, right? Varna got divine origin theory, like you might have heard, Brahmins emerged from the mouth, Kshatriyas from arm, Vaishyas from thighs, and Sudras from feet. And accordingly, their ranking was there. It became hereditary, right? So four varnas, right? And what you will find till now, there is no change in the number of varna. They are still four. But a new system also emerged, that is caste system. And this caste system, it is based on the model of varna system. What is that? It is also, caste is associated with a specific occupation, right? But it is hereditary. A person is born in a caste. Caste is not an achieved status, right? In this, there was purity and pollution concept, right? Something was considered as pure, something was considered as impure, and this affiliation of purity and pollution decided the rank of a caste in the society, in the social structure. These castes were hierarchically arranged. There were numerous castes, a number of castes, and castes were further subdivided into subcastes, right? There was strict caste endogamy. In fact, in the true sense of the term in traditional society, there was subcaste endogamy also. But rules of subcaste endogamy, its violation is generally observed. And this was highly discriminatory. The lower castes were disprivileged, discriminated, right? Upper caste, they were privileged in the society, right? When we talk about these features, generally when we say caste system, it comes in our mind that this is the feature of the caste system, right? And caste system, if the social stratification system is like this, then only it can be called as caste system, right? So there is difference between the Varna system of Vedic period and the Varna and caste system of Sutra period, and this continued till modern period. This continued till modern period. You can say it started changing 19th century onwards. Now, when the question is asking, it is asking about the contemporary period. So, we will find that there are a number of factors which are responsible, which affect the caste system in modern period. So, factors affecting caste in modern period. First, you can see here the contact with Western culture that brought changes in the Indian society. For example, if we talk about Western culture, it is characterized by scientific outlook, equality, achievement orientation. So this has impact on the caste system. Second is democracy, that is universal adult franchise. The people, each and every member of the Indian nation or citizen, they got the right to vote. There was a principle of elected representation and principle of pluralism. Democracy is it always accompanies with the principle of pluralism, that is coexistence. Then welfare state, the nature of a state changed, right? From a police state to welfare state. We have many affirmative actions like reservation in legislature, in jobs for marginalized section of the society, like other backward castes, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, etc., etc. Right? We have many welfare schemes, like we have Garib Kalyan Yojana that is going on, then Manrega is going on, right? Food subsidy is there. So there are many programs, welfare schemes are there, right? Agricultural reform, right? In the post-independent period, you will see land reforms and green revolution. What happened? Land reforms made. Now, if you see the Jamindari system, then in Jamindari system, the land was owned by mainly the dominant caste, the upper caste, right? The word dominant caste was used by noted sociologist M.N. Srinivas. We can say here Kshatriya, Brahmin, they owned the land and they leased the land to tenants who were cultivating and giving a share of the produce to the landowner. So the actual cultivator were not the owner of the land, and these actual cultivators, if I say actual cultivators, they belong to OBCs. If you talk about scheduled castes, or you can say Sudra, those castes who belong to Sudra world. Scheduled castes were mainly landless laborer who were hired by even these OBCs or tenants for cultivation. Now, Jamindari system was abolished, and due to abolition of Jamindari system, these OBCs, which are also known as middle caste, right? For example, if you see in Bihar and UP, Yadavas are there, Kurmis are there, Koiris are there, right? In Western UP, you will see Jats are there. So they were the actual cultivator. So land reform, what happened? Abolished the Jamindari system, and these actual cultivator became the owner of the land, right? So this helped in economic empowerment of the lower caste. Green revolution increased the productivity of land, that further improved the economic status of these people, right? Then we have education, right? Education, we had mass literacy program in India, and due to mass literacy program, literacy rate improved. At the time of independence, only 20% of the Indians were educated. Gradually, the educational status of Indian society that improved. Today more than 80%, around 80% people are said to be educated in India. Now definitely the government agency's definition and the international agency's definition of literacy is different, but we are not going into that particular debate or that controversy. So mass literacy effort, what happened? It proliferated education among the backward castes, right? So this also happens. Industrialization took place after independence, rapid industrialization took place, and industrialization led to growth of middle class, and middle class has its own value that can be characterized as liberal, right? Because scientific education brings tolerance, acceptance of different way of life, right? So that is also there. So these are the factors that affected the caste system or social stratification system in India, that is caste system, right? You can use the word for GS point of view, you can use the word social structure or caste system. Now what happens because of all these? What happens because of all these? Right? these are the factors. These are the factors, and basically these are factors which came with the British Raj, right? The factors that come from outside, they are known as heterogenetic factors or exogenous factors, right? And it was anticipated that caste system would be replaced by the class system of a stratification. But this has not happened. What are the reasons for the resilience of the caste system? One thing that we see, caste is an ancient and indigenous Indian institution. When an institution is very old, it has evolved out of the social, cultural environment of a society throughout the history. It is very difficult to completely replace it, right? So caste system, complete replacement of caste system is very difficult, or in fact impossible, right? So what happens? It has shown extreme resilience under heterogenetic impact. Under heterogenetic means external impact. Instead of being replaced, it went through adaptive transformation. Means it adapted new features, right? And changed itself. But caste system as such were not eliminated or annihilated. For example, if you see Baba Sahib Ambedkar, he talked about caste annihilation. But we, at the practical level, you can say, at the ground level, you can say that caste is still continuing in Indian society. Now, as we said, land reforms and green revolution, what did it do? It improved the economic status of middle class. Education penetrated in the lower caste, and when you get educated, you become aware of your rights as a citizen, and it also improves organizational ability, right? Mahendra Singh Tikat had said, he visited Bihar in 1970s, and he said, now I know the reason of lack of organization among the farmers of eastern UP and Bihar, and the most important reason is their poor economic status, as well as the lack of literacy or education. Because when you get educated, when a community gets educated, its organizational ability improves, right? Government welfare schemes and developmental programs also improved the economic status of the marginalized caste, right? Now what happens when your economic status improves, your organizational ability improves, you have right to vote, that is universal adult franchise, then what happens? The community as such is interested in getting due share in power, in status, and in economic dimension, right? So to attain the political power, caste was used as a very important and successful axis of voters mobilization. That's what you will see 1970s onwards. There has been abrupt growth in the identity politics in India, right? Now, votes are mobilized on the basis of caste. This definitely shows that caste is getting strength, right? It is strengthening. Even the reservation system based on caste, right, that has also strengthened the caste system or caste identity. So what we said, caste became an important axis of mobilization for the lower caste people to get due representation in the political democratic system, right? So electoral mobilization of caste, this happened. Second is principle of pluralism. Democracy is based on the principle of pluralism, right? So what happened, each of these castes, right, developed pride in their own way of life and their own identity, whatever was their way of life, even if it was polluted as per the Sanskritic text or the religious text of India. They said there is nothing wrong in our way of life. For example, in traditional society, what you find, that vegetarianism, right, is highly valued. But if a caste is consuming meat, now they said there is nothing wrong with it, and on the basis of my consumption habit, I must not be given lower status. They felt, they developed pride in their own way of life and therefore their identity, right? Developed pride in their caste identity. So politics is one thing, right? Pluralism is another. Second is constitution prohibited caste discrimination in public services and public space, but silent on its use in the private affairs. Means if you are using caste principles in your private domain, then constitution has nothing to say about it. For example, caste is used for marital purpose, right? Even in this digital revolution world, what you will find, we have matrimonial websites on the basis of caste. If you read the newspaper, right, every Sunday you will get in all newspaper matrimonial columns are there, and majority of the people, girl and boy and their guardian, they seek the partner from the same caste. So caste is being used, or caste identity being used. Secondly, if you see Brahmins, even the lower castes, they also seek to get the services of the Brahmins while officiating religious worship. So here also the caste is important, the caste identity is important. Industrialization, expansion of middle class value, urbanization broke the caste barriers in the matters of co-residence and commensality. Now in the traditional Indian society, right, there was residential segregation. If you look in the villages, traditional villages, the castes were settled as the areas were distributed in the villages, right, on the basis of caste. Now in the urban area, since liberalization has taken place, so there is no restriction of co-residence and there is commensality, eating together. There is no restrictions on eating together. So here what you find, caste is losing its relevance, that it is showing fluidity, right? Here what you see, caste is showing staticness, right? But here caste is showing fluidity. Right? So what we can come to a conclusion, that caste has shown both change as well as continuity. Why continuity? Because it is an indigenous and ancient Indian phenomena. It has gone through adaptive transformation, right? Why identity? Because caste mobilization in the politics is taking place. There is a feeling of pride in the caste identity, right? Maintaining their way of life, getting the services of the Brahmins while officiating the religious worship. But when you look at the caste mobilization in the political setup, the purpose is, the intention is to get equality in status, equality in economy. So the purpose of use of caste identity for political mobilization is to gain economic, social and political equality. So the hierarchical nature of the caste is giving way for the egalitarian nature of caste. You can say hierarchy is getting replaced by equality. That is, caste hierarchy is being replaced by caste equality, and caste is still used in private domain. So these are the reasons of staticness and fluidity of the caste system in the contemporary period. Right? Now definitely for the model transcript of this answer, exactly how the answer is to be written, you can join this Telegram channel, and there all these answers are there. Right? Thank you. This is presented by me, that is Praveen Kishore, faculty Sociology, that is NICE IS in collaboration with IS Delhi Institute, Old Rajendra Nagar, Delhi. Thank you.